Hey everyone, God bless you, and best wishes on this feast of St. Stephen the New. I've entitled my reflection today, The Perfect is Coming. The Perfect is Coming. This language comes from St. Paul's first epistle to the Corinthians in chapter 13, where he is exalting love and discussing the supremacy of love. In that chapter, he reflects upon the torment of uncertainty, the grief that we have as people who are living now in partiality and in a lack of fullness. He says, for instance, we know in part and we prophesy in part. But when the perfect comes, the partial will be done away. When I was a child, I used to speak as a child. I used to think and reason as a child. But when the perfect comes, childish things are put away. Now we see in part, we prophesy in part, we know in part. That torment, that difficulty of living now as illumined people who know God because God has made himself known to us, who know the truth but know it partially, can be a real torment, for us. There are so many things that we would like to know more. We would like to know God more, of course. We'd like to know ourselves more, of course. We would also like to know the truth in society. I think one of the particular pains of living at the present time is the vast social contradictions, the constant public discourse with multiple contradictory affirmations being made constantly. And it's enough to make someone's head spin. But let me speak just for a moment about what's coming. What's going to happen to us when the perfect comes, when Christ himself comes at his second and glorious coming, and the partial is done away. You know, St. Paul uses this image, this type of moving from a child to an adult several different ways in his writings. For instance, in his epistle to the Galatians, he describes a comparison between the old covenant and the new covenant as between children who needed a tutor and those who have come to maturity, or adults who have been delivered by the tutor to Christ now and are now living in the freedom of the gospel. So Christians are adults compared to our Jewish forebears who were anticipating the coming of the Christ. But he also uses this image of child and adult to describe the existence of Christians now in this state of the already in the kingdom, but not fully in the kingdom yet that we're living. This current Christian existence in the world. So in the passage I was referring to at the beginning, 1 Corinthians 13, he says that we are as children now because we are seeing partially and dimly. He says, when I was a child, I used to speak as a child, think as a child, reason as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. Even now, we see dimly as through a mirror. But then, when the perfect comes, we shall see face to face. Now we know in part. Then we shall know fully, even as we are now fully known. Woo! Let me unpack that. Let me unpack that incredible text. First, this whole seeing through a mirror dimly is a beautiful contextual piece of information I should share with you. Corinth was very famous for its brass works, and especially for its mirrors. In fact, Corinthian mirrors were very famous. You would be able to see yourself in the image, and there are Corinthian mirrors in our archaeological record that have images of the gods around the frame of the mirror. So you get the idea, right? You're looking into the mirror and you're seeing yourself among the gods and the goddesses. Wow, how contemporary is that? Anyway, but the image that you're seeing is dim. It's not, sharp. It's not super clear. St. Paul uses this for the way that Christians know today. He doesn't say we don't know, We just see dimly, we see partially. And he says that when the perfect comes, when Christ himself comes, we are going to put away this partial knowledge, this dim perception, and we're going to then see face to face, just like Adam saw when he was walking in the garden and speaking face to face with God. We're going to see face to face. Now we know partially, but then we will fully know. And then he uses a standard by which for us to judge how great this radical increase in knowledge and human knowledge will be at the coming of Christ. He says, we will then fully know, even as we are now fully known. What an affirmation of the deification of believers in Christ. The standard of knowledge for us is the standard of God's knowledge of us now. We will know in the future the way that God knows us now. That is an incredible affirmation beyond human comprehension in this life. This is what is coming to us. St. Gregory the theologian, in one of his orations, reflects on this concept of our future knowing. And I'd like to read you just a small text from St. Gregory. This is what he says. He says, "No one has yet discovered or shall ever discover what God is in his nature and essence. As for a discovery sometime in the future," here he's commenting on St. Paul's affirmation, "let those who have a mind for it research it and speculate. This discovery will take place. So my reason tells me, when this godlike divine thing, I mean our mind and reason, mingles with its kin, when the copy returns to the pattern that it longs after, this seems to me to be the meaning of the great dictum that we shall in time to come know even as we are known." That's his oration 28. What an affirmation. What does the future hold for us, brothers and sisters? This is a great comfort to us in these confusing days. The future holds fullness and a face-to-face intimate knowledge. St. John in his first epistle puts it this way. He says, "Beloved, now we are children of God, and what we shall be in the future we do not know, but we know this, that when Christ appears, we shall be like him, for we shall see him just as he is." When the perfect comes, brothers and sisters, be at peace, because we will know with perfection. We will know in fullness, and the torment of uncertainty and the difficulties of bearing with so much lack of clarity is going to be a thing of the past, because we are going to see clearly by the grace of God. God keep you. In 2019, Patristic Nectar Publications completed a beautiful project, what we call the Synaxarion Project, making the lives of the saints available to our listeners free. This year, 2020, we've committed ourselves to an ambitious new project that we're calling the Philokalia Project. The Philokalia is a collection of spiritual texts from the 4th to the 15th century. They are dedicated to the subject of acquiring inner prayer and contemplative stillness. The saints who wrote these sacred texts were focused upon inner asceticism and enabling, through their instruction, believers to join themselves to God and to stay with God in unceasing prayer. Towards that end, PNP this year has made a $40,000 commitment to make a professional recording in studio of the Philokalia and to offer it to our listeners absolutely free. Bless God, we've received an initial $20,000 matching grant. And we're asking today if you might consider making a donation to help us complete this campaign and to provide the Philokalia in high quality studio recordings to all of our listeners absolutely free. Thank you for your consideration. God bless you.